I'm joined on the set today by Allison Sargent to take a look at what the papers have been saying. Hi, Allison.
Hi, Jeannie.
Let's start in the U.S., where there's been an incredible amount of reaction to that decision from the U.S. Supreme Court upholding this third version of Donald Trump's travel ban.
Lots of anger and disappointment, especially from the left-wing press. We can take a look at the front page of the New York tabloid, the New York Daily News. They are calling the court on their front page lady killers today. And the lady, of course, they are killing, you can see it there, is the Lady Liberty herself being stabbed in the back by Justice. The left is reacting to this really as a betrayal because all of the lower courts had ruled against the ban. They decided to look past the neutral rhetoric that the Trump administration kind of stamped on top of it, looking over, and they did consider Trump's own statements about wanting to shut down Muslims in the U.S. The Supreme Court, however, did not do that. I mean, you can see actually it's interesting to note that the New York Daily News on their front page, well, they're continuing to refer to this not with the kind of more neutral label of the travel ban. No, they are still calling it the Muslim ban.
Now, some papers are pointing out that there was one piece of good news hidden inside this ruling, and that is the fact that the U.S. Supreme Court finally overturned the ruling that had upheld Japanese internment during World War II.
Right. This ruling was called the Korematsu ruling. And in this ruling, upholding Donald Trump's travel ban, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court wrote in his opinion that Korematsu had been overruled in the court of history and has no place in the Constitution, so it's effectively overturning it. The fact that these two decisions were combined, the decision to overturn Korematsu finally, but to uphold the travel ban, is somewhat ironic, a lot of papers are pointing out, because as the website Slate writes here, the travel ban really is the new Korematsu. And actually, the judges who dissented on this travel ban decision, they made the comparison very clearly. They said that it is just like the law that, that approved Japanese internment. And they say that this ruling is really going to be the same type of shameful legacy for the Supreme Court. And that's the majority opinion, really, of much of the left-wing press. The New York Times, the Washington Post, even USA Today, they all have editorials today coming out against this court decision.
There are still, though, some conservative papers who are celebrating the decision.
Right. You can usually count on the Wall Street Journal to give the conservative opinion, and indeed they are celebrating this decision in their editorial today. They say the Supreme Court has risen above and essentially defended the Constitution against what they call anti-Trump passions.
The Washington Post, meanwhile, reporting that this travel ban ruling is already having very real consequences for Muslim Americans.
Many people told the paper that they now feel like second-class citizens. And the Washington Post actually spoke to one man who's American, born in the U.S., but raised in Yemen, and whose wife and 3 daughters remain in Yemen. With this ruling, he says he loses all hope of having them join him. He's now thinking maybe they're going to have to move to Canada. And he told the paper, all my life I felt that this is my country, but now it's not how it used to be.
Staying with Yemen, there's an international meeting on today in Paris that's discussing the situation in what's been called the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
Right. This is a conference that's turned out to be much less ambitious than it was meant to be. Le Figaro today is saying that it's been really watered down. Emmanuel Macron had announced this conference back in April during the visit of the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. At the time, he was hoping to gather ministers from Europe, from the Middle East, from the Gulf states. Instead, Le Figaro supports it's really just a gathering of experts, not even NGOs are going to be present today. So what happened? Well, according to the paper, everything changed when the coalition led by Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates began bombing Houthi rebels in the port city of Hodeidah. Now Le Figaro says that the coalition is refusing to accept any agreements unless the Houthis completely abandon the city. Meanwhile, the Houthis are showing no signs of giving in. My colleague at the Arabic desk found a very defiant cartoon from a Houthi newspaper. We can see in this cartoon the arms of people drowning in Hodeidah, and they're actually not civilians, as it seems at first glance. If you take a look there at the sleeves, you can see those are actually the arms of the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and the UAE and other states that are helping the Saudi coalition. So basically the paper is saying that these countries are now drowning in their attempts to take back Hodeidah.
Allison, now we'll go to Spain for this last story. It's about a well-meaning art restorer who many say has butchered a wooden piece of art in a church.
That's right. She tried to repaint this piece of art, and I guess I could let you judge for yourself, Jeannie. We can pull up some photos of it from The Guardian. This was an effigy of St. George in a church in the town of Estrella. It is 500 years old, although it's looking quite a bit newer now. This restoration is believed to have been carried out by a local art teacher, and the local mayor is very upset. He's trying to look into if it can be undone. It's not the first time also that this has happened in Spain. You might remember 6 years ago, a restoration at another Spanish church went viral for how bad it was. That one was called the Monkey Christ, which gives you an idea of what it looked like, basically turned Christ into a monkey. This one doesn't have a nickname yet, but it might soon because people have already started spreading pictures of it online on Twitter. You can see sort of a better image of it there, sort of the full thing. He's on a horse. And then meanwhile, there's another one who's asking if perhaps the woman who restored St. George was a big fan of the Belgian cartoon character Tintin, because she feels like it actually looks a bit like Tintin.
In that close-up, it did look a bit like Tintin. All right, Alison, thank you so much for that. Alison Sargent with the press review here on France 24. Don't forget, you can get a closer look at that on our website. The address, of course, is france24.com.